Addie Denitis is the mother of 3 beautiful boys, each diagnosed with autism. Like all mums, Addie wants to give her children the opportunities for the best possible future. She has become very active in fundraising, which can involve anything from marathons to 8-hour bike rides to raise the desperately needed funds to support her kids.
You go through a lot of grief, all of a sudden you have a child with a disability, and then all of a sudden you have to, learn what am I going to do? Where can I go? Who am I going to turn to get the most help for my child? And I felt that there was very, very little support. And it was very frustrating and depressing, really.
Being told your child is autistic is difficult enough on the family, let alone having to face the financial pressures of putting your kids through early intervention programs.
With the Helping Children with Autism package, parents can access a variety of services. They can access the early days workshops, which are free of charge, which is great. They can also access the Play Connect play groups, which is also free of charge. They can access some intervention. So the families access $6,000 a year for 2 years prior to the child turning 7. So that's the maximum of $12,000 to access intervention. Best practice is having approximately a minimum of 20 hours of intervention a week for that child. The $12,000 does not support that number of hours of intervention.
All 3 kids stand out in their different ways. So, you got Michael who can't tolerate losing. So if there's a game that every kid is playing, musical chairs, and he loses, he will have a meltdown and a tantrum, and he can't comprehend that losing is part of the game. And then we got Marco who can't tolerate the balloons popping and he's shaking because of the music and all the loud noise. And then we got Daniel who runs away, because that's what he does, and jumps off the trampolines or whatever, So it's really challenging to go out, and everybody, they look at your child and go, oh, what's wrong with him? It's definitely a challenge, and it does interfere with the peers and what peers think of them, but, just got to educate the peers.
From the challenges of accessing early intervention comes the issues faced with the leadership in schools in supporting the needs of disabled students.
All of these children with whatever disability are going to be living in a generalist society. That is, the majority of people are neurotypical. To isolate kids or put kids into a specialist school setting in itself may well be relevant, because there's no state school or no generalist school that can take those kids on board in a positive way. Having said that, though, we have a government that has a policy of social inclusion, That's its policy. And so you can't have a policy of inclusion but a practice of exclusion. You either are inclusive or you're exclusive. So for me, the challenge for government, and it's not this government, for any government, is how do you put into practice a policy that requires resourcing that you may not necessarily have at this stage.
Every parent I have spoken to who has transitioned from mainstream primary to mainstream secondary, their funding level has dropped at least 1 level. And I can't find a parent whose funding has gone up, let me put it that way, or maintain the same. I mean, I've been in training sessions where support staff have said, these kids don't belong in a mainstream school. Why are they here? And that exists.
In some schools, when you see the system working well, it's absolutely brilliant.
It is.
And there's some really, really good examples, but it's not nearly enough.
While this battle rages between policymakers and schools, the ones getting squeezed and not getting what they need are the students and the families.
Daniel is no more little learners because we don't have enough money to raise.
Every student should have their needs met, whether they have a recognised disability or not. So I think there should be more encouragement for schools to take those things up, and that's going to take a bit of time, and for parents and for students, time is of the essence.
Alana Mitchelson reporting for Mojo.